welcome from Philadelphia. My name is William Howder. I am the Senior Associate Director of MBA Admissions with the Wharton School, and it is my distinct pleasure as one of our admissions committee members to be facilitating and moderating our Belonging at Wharton event tonight, which focuses specifically on veterans. Veterans occupy a wonderful, I would say, element of each incoming class to the Wharton MBA program. They're not only probably my favorite group within the MBA program, don't tell any of the other groups that I said that, but they certainly have this vested passion in building and facilitating a wonderful community, not only within the veteran community at Wharton, but also helping their classmates from over 80 countries, tons of different backgrounds and industries, all walks of life, learn a little bit more about their personal and professional experiences through the military that has led them to start their MBA journey and what they're looking to do beyond the MBA at Wharton. The community at Wharton is also something that we are very passionate about talking and sharing a little bit more as you're looking to possibly apply to different MBA programs. The only thing that's similar about each MBA is those initials after your name. But there's a lot of amazing things that differentiate each MBA. And the community at Wharton is truly something distinct that makes this a wonderful place that if you're looking at different MBA programs, our goal for tonight is for you to learn a little bit more about our veterans, our veteran community, but specifically the belonging and the cohesive community elements, both within the vets as well as the larger Wharton MBA community as a whole, so that you can have a better understanding of, wow, I could really see this being an MBA program where I can be a big fish in a big pond. I can be a name and not a number. I can make an impact with my classmates and what it is I'm looking to do. And that's the goal of this Belonging series. And we're very excited to have several Wharton alums, prior vets as well, to be with us tonight. So I'm going to allow them now to introduce themselves and share with you a little bit more about their background, their academic background specifically, as well as their pre-Wharton service experience in the military, their involvement while they were at Wharton, and then certainly what they're doing now post-Wharton. So gentlemen, chivalry is not dead. We're going to allow Brittany to be our first one to share a little bit more about herself. So Brittany, if you could do us the pleasure, please.
I had a feeling that was going to happen, Billy. Thank you. Hi, all. I'm Brittany Fernside, WG20. Graduated undergrad in 2010. I commissioned as an Army officer. Spent most of the time on the special operations side of the house. I left active duty in 2018 to go right to Wharton. While I was at school, really active in the Veterans Club and also Out for Biz, our LGBTQ affinity group. Post-Wharton, I actually worked at a startup that was Wharton founded, stayed there for about a year, and then I most recently returned to BCG as a consultant. I guess we'll
wonderful. Thank you,
pass it off to
Brittany.
Brendan.
Thank you, Brittany. Hi, everyone. I'm Brendan. My academic background, I was a Naval Academy grad from the class of 2012. I served in the Marine Corps for 6 years as an infantry officer, and then matriculated at Wharton after a very brief stint doing investment banking in New York. My involvement at Wharton, I did a bunch of stuff. I was an admissions fellow, so facilitated the team-based discussions, which you guys will become familiar with as you move through the application process. I was a venture fellow, so I took students to Quantico to put them through a 24-hour event down there, rolling around in the mud with the Marines. I was a member of the Veterans Club. I did the ski and snowboard club. There's a ton of great things to get involved with at Wharton, which I'm sure we'll dive into tonight. I declined a full-time offer in banking to pursue entrepreneurship. I run a startup called Paint True. You guys should all go buy a painting from us if you're looking for a wonderful gift for someone close to you, especially as we come up on the Christmas holiday season. Strongly recommend buying one of our paintings. I'll throw a discount code in the chat. Yeah, so I run a startup. And I'll pass it off to Brandon Trauma.
Thanks, Brendan. Yeah, so Brandon Trauma, class of 17. So prior to Wharton, I was in the Army, infantry and special forces officer. Went to Wharton right out of the Army. Post-business school, I spent about 2 years as a commodities merchant investing in energy infrastructure. I do something similar now with the Carlyle Group. So similar function, different institution. While I was at Wharton, pretty actively involved in the Vets Club as well as the Energy Club and the Energy Conference. And drinking a lot of Yingling. So happy to answer questions about that too.
Save the best for last. I'll go. I'm Brent Robinson. I Wharton 19 grad, so right in between the other folks here. I was a Naval Academy grad, I'll say 05, so going back a ways now, unfortunately. I was a pilot and a test pilot for a good bit of time, and then rolled straight out of the Navy into Wharton. I was a waitlister too. Lots of experience on the wait list, lots of experience. So any questions around that, can answer those. At Wharton, I was pretty active in the Vets Club, ski and snowboard, same as that venture as well. But also, I really kind of tried to focus on the investment management club. I was on the board both years because that's what I thought I want to do, which is what I am doing. So that worked out. And then also the wine club is just a personal passion of mine that I was on the board of that as well. Currently, I'm in investment management, public equities, buy side analyst. Based out of the East Coast, but working remotely out of LA.
Awesome, Brent, thanks for sharing. So with the time that we have left, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through a couple questions with our panel here to talk a little bit more about belonging at Wharton, what that has really meant to some of our veteran alums, and what they can talk a little bit more about the community specifically. We're then going to save a little bit of time for some Q&A at the end. And then we'll leave the last 5 to 8 minutes for our panelists that are joining us tonight to pass one additional tip or piece of advice on to each of you tonight that are joining us from all sorts of different locations all over the globe. So with that being said, what I do want to start off with is for our Wharton alums tonight, can you talk and share with our audience a little bit more about what does not only belongingness mean to you, but maybe why was belongingness important at Wharton? Or what did you really kind of take away from that belongingness in the community here at Wharton in partnership with why it was important to you?
I'm happy to kick it off. I would say for me, belonging at Wharton was just being like a valued member of the class. I think when I was like first accepted, a lot of people at Wharton have imposter syndrome because, you know, it's a great program and your classmates are incredibly talented. They come from all sorts of high-powered careers in the civilian world. And when I got into Wharton, I mean, I couldn't even spell the word revenue. You know, I was a Marine, so I was used to eating crayons, not, you know, using them for like P&Ls. But all jokes aside, I mean, your classmates will make you feel like an incredibly valued member of the team. And more importantly, you really do have something to contribute, which I learned over time. Your leadership experience that, you know, you all have had from in really diverse, you know, situations, leading sailors and soldiers and airmen and Marines is incredibly valuable to your classmates. So we have a ton to contribute to the community. And so to me, that's kind of what it meant to belong at Wharton among my peers.
Yeah, Brendan, I mean, I'd agree with that. I think something that, from my perspective, that I really valued there, and I had a number of buddies who had actually ended up at Wharton ahead of me from the unit that I left the Army from. I mean, they made it clear to me that they were fully integrated members of the community, not just some weird older subset, right? And were members in a way that they felt like contributed. I think what a lot of them pointed out was in their learning team experience, they were often the one who enforced deadlines and made sure that the trains were in on time, right? Which was, you know, I think some of us from the military take that for granted, but it's a unique skill set that your classmates appreciate and value you for. So, I mean, for me, I found that to be the case, and was certainly a key component of my experience, especially my first semester.
Yeah, I mean, I'll piggyback on that. It's, it's a pretty scary thing to get out of the military in general, and it takes a village. And certainly Wharton has a very large veteran population comparatively. So I think, it would be the natural thing to kind of try to embed yourself in that community immediately, but Wharton does a tremendous job of exposing you to your classmates right away, both in a small group setting and then, of course, the Wharton at-large student body, which can be overwhelming. To really kind of echo Brendan's sentiment, though, I mean, your classmates are as intimately curious about you as you are about them. A lot of them have not had a ton of exposure to folks in the military. And so they really want to know about your experience, and that piece is invaluable. I think, at least for my time when I was there in the Veterans Club, we tried to organize events, like Ask Me Anything panels, or different types of moral obligation scenario conversations, just to try to spark that conversation. And it really led to some deeper conversation where your classmates are just, again, intimately curious about you and want to know about you. So you are an incredibly important member of the community, and I think you feel that from the start.
Yeah, I don't know if I can add much more. I mean, they definitely hit on it all. To me, very personally, it's probably driven by an insecurity, but it really of just, what can I add? And kind of what Brendan was saying, what can I add to these folks? And you do figure it out pretty quickly, because I think Wharton does a fantastic job of even designing all the way down to the learning team. Everybody on our learning team had such a different background that it kind of forced everybody to lean on each other right away, right? And be part of this team at the smallest level. That is something that is very familiar to all of us sitting here, right? And we all kind of needed each other and leaned on each other and found out our strengths and weaknesses very, very quickly. And so for me, that learning team aspect gave me something to grab onto. I knew I'd connect with the vets, right? That was easy. That was guaranteed. But the learning team setup for me was a really tangible thing I can grab onto to say, yep, I belong in this group. They need me because I can make them run on time and show up on time and make sure we're progressing through whatever the task was.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. In a similar vein, want to ask each of you to talk a little bit more about how did Wharton show that it values veterans? If you could comment a little bit more on what was your personal experience? Was it a classmate, club, professor? Could you share with our guests tonight a little bit more about how did Wharton show that it really values you as a veteran, or the veteran community as a subgroup within the larger class as a whole?
I'll start. For me, it was right away the military vet days that were organized. I did a couple of those different schools, and I don't know. To me, it just stood out immediately. Just the connection between the people, right? And it was very authentic and genuine. And to set that up an entire day just for the vets, and everybody was so welcoming. Everybody knew the vets were coming in. We all had short hair and walked around in the line. And but everybody were there, and then really the culmination of that was the pub. I don't know what pub looks like now with COVID and how that's going to go forward, but to me that was really it. It's like, this is all about the people and belonging together as a team and a group at Wharton. And that's what, right off the bat, that's how I connected with it.
There's something I'd want to add to that, and I think Brent specifically may have some similar experiences here, given that we took career paths that are slightly different than a lot of particularly older vets take at a lot of schools, ending up in investment management roles. I think something that was very clear to me from the moment that I set foot on campus at Wharton was that there was a belief amongst not just my classmates, but the career folks and professors that, like, no pivot was too big. No, despite how kind of non-quant my background was, making the jump into principal investing was a possibility, and something that if I was interested in doing, I had all the resources to support me, both academic, but also, just personally, right? I don't want to knock on other peer programs, but friends of mine with similar backgrounds who wanted to make the transition to the realm of finance, or we'll call it data-driven tech. were frequently discouraged from doing so. What was really cool to me at Wharton was there was this genuine belief, even as an older vet, and Brent, I was '06 when I graduated undergraduate, that you could teach an old dog new tricks, and that's something that faculty, administrations, and fellow students all bought into and supported. So to me, that was a big game changer.
Yeah, two names I can drop just from the faculty side is the career, the almost personalized career folks there. I don't remember the specific. Her name is Jess Katz. She did the investment management, and I just could walk into her office or even call her anytime, no problem. And then I went all the way up to Mary Ellen too. I mean, Mary Ellen is such a genuine supporter of the vets. It just comes through more so than any of the other schools and programs that I personally, interacted with. It wasn't even close.
And just to add a tiny bit of context, what Brent's talking about, Mary Ellen is the vice dean who oversees admissions, career management, and student life. So she's like one of the senior most people at Wharton, and she's incredibly involved in the Veterans Club, a huge advocate of vets at Wharton. And then he had previously mentioned pub, which is probably worth lingering on for a second, and it plays into Wharton's culture. Like, Wharton is by far the best time that you will have. So if you get into this school, you should come here for sure. It is so much fun. Pub is every Thursday night. Everybody gets together for unlimited beer and pizza. An awesome way to kick off the weekend. We have 4-day work weeks. So a little bit of an adjustment going back to the real world where apparently you have to work on Fridays. Or if you're in investment management or startups, you just like work continually. But at Wharton, you only work 4 days a week. So it's a great way to kick off the weekend and have some beers with your classmates. Each of the clubs will typically sponsor a pub, and the the Veterans Club sponsors one of the earlier pubs in September. And it's typically like the best attended pub at Wharton because people are so curious and interested to hear about your service and what you've done. It's very different than obviously a lot of other people's experiences. So just being incredibly curious about what you've done, I think is just another hallmark of the Wharton student. So.
Yeah, and we also, give our classmates MREs, so that's always a fun time. I will also make a plug for our Army Navy tailgate at, non-COVID times, so that's pretty righteous too. I think the one thing that stood out for me going through the MBA recruiting process was, when Wharton tries to show you or tell you that they're looking at you holistically, especially as a veteran, trying to take as many data points in as possible. It's not just lip service. I think certainly when we became part of the student body, and Brent and Brendan and Brandon can probably speak to this a bit more. You can truly see how much the admissions team is trying to understand the veteran applicant. And I certainly did not get that feeling when applying to other schools, but I think it was also representative of the folks that were in the Vets Club too at the time, just truly working to make a personal connection with you, to help you out in any way possible during your admissions process. That was invaluable to me, and ultimately the reason why I decided to come to Wharton, because of all of those personalized experience I had leading up to that day to say yes.
I can expound on that actually, because I talked to Brandon Trauma there multiple times as I was trying to get in, and I remember at one point he had to actually say, hey, I can't really help you anymore because I'm on the committee that reviews the resumes or something to that effect. But it was just I don't even know how we got connected initially, but that was 4 years ago now. And I just called him right up and answered the call immediately. It wasn't even a thing.
And one thing I'd flag is that that doesn't end when you graduate either. So literally yesterday morning, I think at around 7:30 Eastern, I got a text from a buddy of mine who was a year ahead of me, who had just gotten a job offer at a firm where I knew some people, and he needed to character check some senior folks. And within 15 minutes, I had him on the phone with folks I knew there, right? So that, I think an important takeaway here is that, it doesn't end once you graduate. I know I've drank beer certainly with Brendan in the interim since we both graduated, and some other Wharton vets. So that community is more than just 2 years.
100% agree. Just to build on that, I think the last time Brandon and I saw each other, we were having some beers, which was a good time. But the community at Wharton, both in the Veterans Club and outside of it, is unbelievable. I mean, like I think half of my cap table for my startup is Wharton veterans. So, I mean, these relationships are very real. Like, people are willing to give you what limited amounts of cash that they have to support your dreams. I mean, there's really no like greater demonstration, in my opinion, of like how much they just believe in one another and are willing to bend over backwards to help one another. So, I mean, this is an incredible community.
Building off of that, Brendan, can you guys share with our guests a little bit more about the perceptions about who is at Wharton and the type of environment we have here? Because there's certainly a lot of perceptions. Some might be real, some might be perceived. But can you share with our guests a little bit more about the contemporary culture at Wharton? What were some perceptions? What were some real big takeaways for you? Or maybe something that once you got here, it dispelled a myth or perception that you maybe had about the culture or community here.
I'm happy to kick us off. Before I came for a welcome weekend, I had a perception that the typical Wharton student was like a finance background type person who I was not going to click with and wasn't going to understand kind of where we had come from, what we had done. And I came for a welcome weekend and I was so blown away. It was not at all what I was expecting. I actually came to a welcome weekend. I think I met Brandon. I think I met you there for the class of 2019. I had to defer for a year because I had a pretty bad injury when I was coming out of the Marine Corps. And the people who I met who were my soon-to-be classmates at Wharton, they stayed in touch with me throughout that year, which was wild. I mean, they were texting me and telling me about the fun things that they were doing. They couldn't wait to see me on campus, and made me feel like I wasn't really like missing out on that year of Wharton. So that when I showed up as a member of the class of 2020, I had this incredible network of friends that I had already made who had just bent over backwards to make sure that I was doing well, that I was still coming, that I was aware of all the opportunities that I was going to have when I got on campus. And I think that kind of speaks more than, it just really speaks to the fact that like, once you're a member of the class, and it is incredibly easy to make really lifelong friendships, and people really do care about one another. So I was really blown away.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a similar sentiment there. A lot of the misperception is it's just a bunch of finance bros, and that's all Wharton is doing, is, you know, to build on that pedigree. It goes without saying, like, the moment you step on campus, you'll see how diverse the student body is, I think all different backgrounds. And it's not just people coming to recruit for traditional backgrounds like consulting or finance. I mean, the amount of entrepreneurship that happens at Wharton is, I would say, almost unparalleled, or at least competitive with any other top tier MBA program. And Brendan can obviously speak to that quite a bit, but I mean, it is just a wealth of idea sharing. Like, I felt immediately so comfortable in that environment, especially, like I said, a woman, part of the LGBTQ community, like diversity in every sense of the word. Even just looking around at the placards in your classroom, you see all the flags that exist. It's a very, you know, cool way to step back for a second and kind of in disbelief to see where you are at the moment. So I would dispel any of those myths. And quite frankly, it's going to take you, I think, just stepping onto campus or coming to a welcome weekend to truly make that a reality. But yeah.
I'll ask another question. Taking everything that you've been able to certainly see in some of those perceptions and being able to certainly find that there was a lot of misnomers about the community. Once you got here to Wharton and you were a current student, and whether it's within the Vets Club or the vet community or within your larger cluster or cohort, can you share with our guests tonight maybe a time where you contributed to somebody else's sense of belongingness within the Wharton community, military, non-military, but something where you were able to kind of help others feel a little bit more included in this large community?
Yeah, so one of the most gratifying experiences for me, in no small part because of the Patriots comeback win, but it would have been the Super Bowl in January 2017 when we hosted basically a Super Bowl party for international students who just were totally unfamiliar with U.S. traditions and gut folks eating chicken wings and all sorts of other very, very American snacks. So that was and like it was a lot of fun. We had folks from all over the globe. I mean, I've got pictures of some Israeli vets with the folks who were originally from Palestine, like they're eating chicken wings. So I don't want to suggest that I was any closer to world peace as a result of that party, but I think that was something we were able to do. We had folks from around the world, from all sorts of diverse countries and enjoying watching football. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I think some of those crossover events with other clubs or other members of the student body are some of the most impactful. We put on a full list of programming during the week leading up to Veterans Day, culminating in pub, which is of course a ton of fun. But if you've never heard of Storytellers, it's a pretty big thing at Wharton. And one of the things that we hosted was a Veterans Club Storytellers event. Packed house, and it is veterans getting up there being very, very vulnerable and telling their story. And it is an incredible connection that happens immediately with your classmates. And it's something where I think after that, you just see the gratitude in a very different way. They're just happy to have your experience there.
I think kind of a similar event that we did. I don't know if they did it the year after, Brittany, maybe you remember it, where it was basically a lunchtime session where we come in with like 4 vets and we each kind of share a leadership experience that we've had in the military, right? And these are no kidding actual leadership experiences, whether it's on the battlefield or at home with mental illness and suicide and all this kind of topics. And I think we got so much positive feedback from our classmates there, just really connecting with, they've seen some things in their lives or they've experienced as well. But to have the vets come out there and say, hey, this is our experience, this is kind of our day-to-day lives and what we experienced for the last 5-10 years, really connected in a different way than you would expect from a vet to a lot of these folks. And we can connect and bond on that a little bit different level.
We did build on that. That was a great initiative that you guys put on, Brent. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think you were one of the people that orchestrated that. That was awesome. Yeah,
it was actually a civilian classmate of ours that came to us and said, hey, it was a kind of we were friends, and came to me and another person at VESCOM, like, hey, what about this idea? And then we kind of built on it and said, hey, let's make this a real kind of event. It was just over a lunch session, but it was very deep, I'll say.
Yeah, it was super cool. I have 2. I just want to take 1 second to expound on what Storytellers is, because it's really important to the Wharton community. Storytellers is a club where you share a personal experience, and they encourage you to be really vulnerable with your classmates, which is so far outside of most veterans I know's comfort zone. They really demand it during preterm, to be honest, and it breeds these really, really tight relationships really, really quickly, which was an interesting sort of tool for your leadership toolkit that is just absolutely underutilized in the military. So I strongly encourage vulnerability. I try and be as vulnerable as possible. It's also most useful for people, just to have real conversations with one another. So in that spirit, I'll go ahead and share another fun one. I was asked during my first year to participate in a club pub that was hosted by the Out for Biz Club by Alexis McLaughlin, who was a veteran from the class of 2019, one of Brent's classmates. Actually just linked up with her down in Austin, Texas a few months ago for some beers. She's rad. And they put on a drag show for Club Pub. So the Veterans Club is the reigning champion team for the drag show every year. You get a bunch of burly dudes in dresses that do not fit at all, with varying degrees of awesome beards. So yeah, my year, obviously we won. It was fantastic. There's a lot of different teams that compete representing the first year class, second year class. I think admissions maybe puts forward a team, career management puts forward a team, but the veterans always are victorious. So that is a tradition we will expect you all to uphold.
Yes, admissions and career management partner together to put in a team, and we're not very good. And as the typically usually the only male, I kind of get like this look of like, you're also participating. So it's I've been able to get out of it the past few years, but I don't think I'm going to be able to play that card much longer again before I'm going to have to jump back in for admissions. But it's okay. It's a lot of fun. One more question, and then what we're going to do is we're going to open it up to our guests to ask questions as well to our alums to learn a little bit more about anything else that you would like to learn about the Wharton community, the Vets Club, certainly that sense in facilitating and fostering belonging. That's really something that's special with us that Brendan hinted at that starts the first day of preterm. But my last question before we open up to our guests is, can you share with our guests, how has your own personal sense of like belongingness contributed to your ability to thrive post-MBA? We've talked a lot about coming into the Wharton community, but how has your belongingness either changed from your time at Wharton, or how has it helped you thrive post-MBA and paying it forward in what it is that you're doing now?
I think for me, it actually stems off the IM Club, my experience in investment management, because I came in there similar to Brandon of like, this is what I want to do. I want to do this investing thing. It seems pretty cool. And as a drastic career changer, it's a huge leap. Not that going other routes aren't entrepreneurship or consulting, any of those are all like, it's a huge leap. It was a heck of a lot of work, but I became very involved in the IM Club because of it. And I was on the board for 2 years of the IM Club, and I got very close with the career management folks at IM Club. And so since I've graduated, kind of the giving back and the belonging aspect is that I've done a lot of calls and talks with prospective IM folks, and not even military, just non-military as well. Just say, hey, I'm a career changer, get my perspective on how to, tackle this beast of this career change. And I feel very connected to Wharton still in that sense and belonging, that I'm giving back to Wharton, helping, because just through the IM side and the IM Club itself, I'm still in like the little group chats and stuff. Every once in a while, I'll get pinged, say, hey, what was your experience like? Here's my experience. And I really feel like I'm adding value, and people, I get thank you, all the time, not just the obligatory thank yous, but like, hey, just, stay in touch and all this kind of stuff. It's been pretty rewarding, honestly, and unexpected.
Thanks, Brent. Anyone else?
I'll chime in. I never let a question go to waste. I would say for me, like this is such an important period of time for you guys. Like as you get out of the military, I think I thought when I was in your shoes that the transition was like a point in time rather than like a period of time. And I would say like I've been out of the military for 3 and some change years now, and I still feel like I'm transitioning to the civilian world because it's just such an integral part of your life when you're in the service. A lot of veterans, when they get out, sort of struggle with a sense of purpose and what they're going to do with their lives, because your whole career has been like this, and you knew exactly what it took to get to that next level, right time, right place, right uniform, like 80% of the time, and you were probably at least going to make major. And once you're out, it's so different. I mean, you have the whole world is open to you, and there's no linear path. So I think that can present a lot of challenges. Having a team of incredibly solid people in your corner makes you able to thrive, and not just to be a veteran who is like a competent business professional, but rather a competent business professional first, who by happenstance is also a veteran. And so, yeah, I mean, I would just say like having a sense of belonging and having a tribe in your corner of other Wharton, both like veterans and civilian peers, is like such an unbelievable positive aspect of my life, and has been the most important part of my transition out of the military.
Yeah, I would say it's almost like a Veterans Club mandate at this point for Mary Ellen, but the two big rocks are every vet will graduate and every vet will get a job. And while, the every vet will graduate piece is certainly your time at school, the every vet will get a job piece is where you can really be a big part of that pay it forward aspect of it once you graduate. And to Brent's point, it never stops. And so for whatever career path you've chosen, you know that you're always going to be there as a person, I mean, and as a veteran, that someone can reach out to assist with whatever they're considering for the next step. I mean, the Wharton network is incredible, but then you can even dial that into the Wharton Veteran Network is incredible. So I'm sure everyone here has at some point tapped into that. It has been invaluable. So don't take it for granted.
Yeah, I mean, I just said it's absolutely the case. And the first job I got out of business school was at a pretty non-traditional firm, but the reason I got the job was that there was a Wharton vet who was willing to roll the dice on me who ran the company, right? Like that was literally it. He's like, I have no idea if you can do this job, but we need to have somebody try and might as well roll the dice on you, right? Like that was basically what he said when he met me. So I think that's an indication. The only way I left the firm for what was for me a better opportunity, what he left me with was, hey, give somebody else the shot that I gave you, right? And I think that's very much the ethos of this community.
Awesome. Some wonderful comments from each of our panelists. At this time, want to open it up to our guests to ask questions. You can either drop questions into the chat. You can use the hand raising feature if you know how to use that on Zoom. If you don't, that's okay, because I'm still learning how to figure that out sometimes as well. You can unmute yourself and ask our panelists. So an array of different ways with which you can ask your questions. I think I saw one come through here in the chat. Not yet, but does anyone have a question for our panelists?
I figured out how to use the hand raising function, so I'm just going to unmute myself here. Seems like a lot of similar stories as far as backgrounds, a lot of folks transitioning out of the military. Personally, for me, I'm applying for a shortage. I have to think there's a few other folks that are applying for something of a shortage where you're going to get a graduate degree and continue on as a career in the military. I was going to see if you guys had seen any stories of folks who wanted to get an MBA but continue to pursue a career in the military and prepare for another career once you get out of the service on the back end there. What some of those experiences look like and what some of the benefits of an MBA for a career military officer would look like.
It's definitely a thing. We had a couple guys in my class who did it. Joe Bonacorso, submarine officer. There's a guy he's a second year right now. You should reach out to Dan Kronz. He's in the Army. He's actually getting out of the Army by happenstance, but he did start with the intention of returning. There are guys every year that do that, Justin. I think an MBA, like, honestly, it's in addition to learning about business, it is like a leadership school as well. So there are learning points that you'll take back to the fleet to make your fellow military service members, your sailors, whoever, more useful or more valuable, like able to contribute in a leadership capacity in a different kind of way. So yeah, it happens every year, and it's a super valuable part of the class, I think.
So frame of reference, I went back to Wharton for promotion ceremony last year. So guy who I went through the captain's career course with at this point over a decade ago, pinned 05 as a second year student, active duty Army acquisition officer. And I mean, in terms of how the Wharton experience helped his career progression, he spent the summer between both years at I'll screw this up. It's not the realm that I play in, but basically an automated vehicle startup. I mean, they were basically doing like grocery and restaurant deliveries. He not only was selected immediately after Wharton to be one of the two XOs to the Army's Undersecretary for Acquisitions, Logistics, and Technology, but he was picked up on a CSL board to take over, I want to the future, I'll screw this up, but whatever the robotic combat vehicle is, like he's going to be the guy who one day runs it as an acquisition officer. So it's like, for somebody in his shoes, probably the top job he could have landed, and a unique set of experiences he got at Wharton put him in the position to be identified by general officers to be that guy. So And I think there's, at least from what I've seen on the Army side, tremendous opportunity stemming from that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Richard, I know that you've had your hand raised, so I'm going to let you go first, and then we'll go to you, John. Sound good?
Hey, thanks, William. I'm Rich St. Onge, an aviation officer at the 160th SOAR. My question is for Brent, something you had said that kind of sparked an interest, particularly for me. You know, obviously looking at a career change, coming from an operations background that's not particularly quant heavy, how did you or any of the other panelists, you know, sort of make yourself appealing to Wharton as an applicant and really demonstrate that that capability in the quant area?
Yeah. I will say, so first of all, everybody's like worried about the quant aspect of Wharton. That maybe for William there, one of the preconceived notions that Wharton is like super quant heavy. I'm sure you see that a lot. I would say, look, all of you are more than capable off the bat. Okay. For any of the classes. But for the application, you know, to show, hey, I do have quant, obviously there's the tests, right? And the better you do on that, that's going to be very helpful. One thing for me specifically, I had an engineering background for undergrad, and I actually had a graduate degree in engineering as well prior to showing up. So I'm sure that reflected. But since I knew I wanted to, or at least I thought I wanted to do something in the investing world, I started working on the CFA. And I don't know if that helped or not. And William can't tell us if that helps or hurts. But from the professional aspect of like me getting the job and handling the quant of the job, it definitely helped. And during interviews and that was because it just showed my dedication to that kind of quantitative aspect of the business that I wanted to go into. And it showed kind of the passion there. I don't know. Did that answer the question?
No, it absolutely did. Thank you.
But don't worry, like my buddies, some of my best friends from Wharton, I met in the finance 101 class, and like we had a scheme. They did the modeling and I did the homework problems, and like we all made it work because they were like private equity and banking. Like, don't worry about it. If once you get in, like that's it'll be fine. I guarantee it.
Thanks, Brent.
John, we'll go to you now with your question.
Hey, how's it going? It's John Joslowitz. I'm a combat engineer officer with the 101st. My question was for Brendan, because you kind of talked about deferring because you're a medical injury. Basically, and we could talk offline about it if you want to do that, but basically I had a severe TBI. I was always looking at Wharton, but it's kind of coming closer or earlier than I thought because of the injury. I'm probably looking at retirement pretty soon. So I just wanted to, I guess if you could speak to that kind of, I know it was difficult for me kind of finding new purpose after the Army because the Army was what I wanted to do. And now kind of transitioning also with doing the injury aspect as well.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear about your injury. That's really difficult. And I don't envy how difficult that must be. A lot of vets at Wharton pretty banged up. No surprise there, I don't think. I would say one of the more helpful things is just like having other people to go through like the VA process with even, and like understand what resources are available for you to get like physically and mentally healthy is really, really, really helpful. I mean, I think, I don't know, maybe a quarter of the messages that go back and forth on the Vets Club GroupMe are about figuring out how to deal with the VA. So I think that's very helpful. We can talk more offline if you want. I think it's really, really critical. And this is like a macro statement for everyone, like get your mental health in a good place as you transition. You really need to pay attention to it because, you know, as soon as you stop running 1,000 miles an hour in your military career, it becomes something that you need to focus on and pay into, just like you do with your physical health. So strongly encourage everybody to get the help that they need. And the VA is actually like, they get a pretty bum rap, but like they have tremendous resources and reach. So strongly encourage you to take advantage of those resources. Happy to help. I'm very open about mental health related things. If anybody's struggling or needs help or wants to talk or whatever, I'll throw my email into the thing and we can chat.
One thing I'd hop on with what Brendan said there. I mean, in terms of the Vets Club as a resource for this type of stuff, I mean, not just in a career vein, but I mean, kind of within negotiating, but mapping out the resources available at the VA, both health and education wise. The groups, over the years, the groups put a lot together. And there's a lot of collective knowledge out there about how to take advantage of some stuff that's not necessarily intuitive if you're looking at it on your own. So just one more pitch for the club.
Hey, one point too on just specifically because you mentioned TBI. This is purely coincidence, but use it to your advantage. So Wharton is literally across the street, catty corner to the VA medical center. Okay, I had a lot of medical issues as well, and I was going to the VA 2 to 3 times a week for most of my time at Wharton. And their TBI team is incredible. They have like a world-renowned researcher that is like one of the leads on the TBI team, and they still call. I'm still in contact with them on a regular basis. So that purely coincidence, but it's a fantastic coincidence.
Awesome. Thank you. And John, thank you for your question. This next one came into the chat that I wanted to get to, as I thought this would be good for everyone on the panel. After leaving the military, what part of the MBA program did you think you were prepared for? And what part were you actually not prepared for? This is from Walker. It's apparently a great question because you can see all the thoughts here swirling around in our panelists' heads here.
And I'll start with a fun one. I don't think I was prepared to keep up with the 25-year-old crowd again. And so for a lot of our classmates, they're using this as an opportunity, you know, as they should, to take a break from their normal careers and have a really good time while they're at school. And you will want to have a really good time with them. You will for some of it, but I learned very quickly that I couldn't keep up as much as I thought I could. I guess nor did I want to. I'll caveat that.
It's a really
Anyone
hard
else want
question.
to chime in real quick? I know, it's a good one.
I thought I was prepared for what I wanted to do for a career. I went in wanting to do banking and I ended up taking the entrepreneurial path. And I think a lot of that was based on my own perception of what would make me personally happy in my life. And being at Wharton and having the time and space to think about my priorities and having classmates to be able to bounce ideas off of was incredibly helpful for me to realize that what I had been prioritizing or thought would make me happy was actually in no way related to my own happiness and sense of fulfillment. So I thought I was prepared, I guess, for what I would be doing, and I was way off.
Thank you both for sharing. Mateo, I know you have a question, and then we'll go to Miles.
Yeah, good evening. I hope everybody is just doing well. My name is Mateo, and I am, I guess, by far the youngest person here. I am a current undergraduate at the Wisconsin School of Business, studying finance and international business. I actually just joined, so this coming fall will be my my first semester in ROTC. And I just have a pretty general question for the, I guess, the panelist. Having plenty time, I guess, in front of myself, what would you say, or what was something that you perhaps wish you would have invested more time in, or invested more time while you were in the military that you think could have essentially helped you make more of your time at Wharton?
Mateo, first of all, I think great on you for being so relatively young and being, you know, even thinking this far ahead. Like I had no sense of that when I was in your shoes. So first, congratulations on that. For me, I think this is going to sound weird, but and maybe at your stage in ROTC, but for me, it was probably taking time for myself and being slightly, this is sound weird, but more selfish in the military, because being in the military, it's not about you, right? It's about the team, it's about the mission. And that has been kind of like a transition that, not that the real world, you have to be this selfish, a-hole. That's not what I'm saying. It's just being able to think about yourself and your own priorities in life, right? And what you want to get in life and how you want to achieve those priorities. I could have done more of that in the military, probably, and that maturity and self-reflection. Very broad answer. I apologize.
No, thank you.
Awesome. Miles.
Hey everybody, my name is Miles. I'm a medic with 5th Group. Thank you all for speaking with us today. So my question is pretty general. Being that it seems there's very few enlisted at these events, I'm curious as to your experiences working with your enlisted peers while you're at school, how they kind of leveled up to you guys as well as everybody else. And just overall, if you can remember how many were in your class, that'd be great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so Miles, I can take I start with that. So Thomas Cavett was a buddy of mine in Okie who was an 18 Delta, who was a year behind me at Wharton. In my class, I want to say there were at least 2 or 3 more. Dino Mavroukis, the DevGru guy who's in our class, and there were one or 2 others as well. Yeah, I think, and I don't want to speak for William on this, but I think one thing in particular that sets Wharton apart, at least as I see it relative to classes of some peer institutions, is that Wharton really values highly like success while you are in the military at your particular job. And a lot less of what I think would be, I don't know, maybe considered by other institutions that don't look as closely, like just things like rank, undergraduate institution, right? They go a step deeper. So what I can say, at least in the classes that I dealt with when I was there were usually at least 3 or 4 enlisted vets, and not that there couldn't have been more, right? I think it was probably more a function of less applying than it was, total admitted relative to the class. So what we saw in these cases, there were really successful enlisted vets who had worked really hard and done really cool stuff that got in and continue to succeed at Wharton afterwards. So I don't think there's, at least from what I saw, any bar, officer to enlisted as far as getting in.
I had 2 enlisted in my class, and they're both total badasses, and they're still badasses afterwards. And they make fun of the officers constantly, as they should, throughout the program. So
there's clearly a healthy banter that occurs within everything here. We do have a question that came into the chat. I want to get to that one. And then Tim and Thomas, you will be our last 2 questions. We'll go a little bit over just because I know it's been such a really, hopefully robust conversation and giving you a little bit more to learn all about the Wharton. But a great question came in from Vincent. He mentions, Brittany, that you alluded to this, but could you as panelists talk about how Wharton allows you to connect with others beyond your military identity?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just responding to it. Wharton has an incredible number of affinity clubs for however you would like to identify post-military career. I think Brendan had mentioned being a veteran is really just one aspect of that. I think you will quickly realize it is a very comfortable and welcoming environment. And in many ways, if you weren't as open to some parts of your identity while you were in the military, it is a very nice way to start to be comfortable in certain ways. So of course, like I mentioned, Out for Biz is a club that I was very heavily involved in. They also do visit days. And so that was very helpful to be a part of, just that welcoming community. I'll let the other folks kind of expand on that if you were in other clubs, but it was a very unique way for me, I think, to feel for the first time that sense of belonging with that part of my identity.
So one thing I'd flag, I think where a lot of veterans probably differ from their classmates, are we tend to be older, and there's a lot with spouses and kids. And that more than anything else, I think even more so than being a veteran, kind of like sets you apart from like just a social standpoint. What I would say though is that, like, obviously within some modicum of reason, my kids were welcome at virtually any of Wharton events that I wanted to take them to, including and especially pub. Right. And my wife was made to feel like a valued member of the community. She hosted the partners half of Welcome Weekend and was really, really into that. So I think to that end, like, if to those who are showing up with dependents, like, they're parts of the Wharton community too. And the willingness of my younger single classmates to integrate them into part of my experience made it a lot easier of a transition for me.
Literally true to say that there are partners who are more involved in Wharton events and extracurriculars than their student partner. It's a real thing, like a very real thing. So they're 100% part of the community. They run clubs, they participate in absolutely everything. They just don't go to class, which is true for some of the students anyway.
In line with that, I'll drop into the chat here real quick, a great story that touches a little bit on the Partners Club, so that if you are someone who has family, children, it really is a wonderful, welcoming community, in addition, that we feel really differentiates the Wharton MBA experience for both you and your family who would be joining you on this journey. Tim, you're up.
How's it going? So I have a couple questions. So like a lot of my highly competitive peers, I'm a detached commander, special forces. I know who I'm applying against, at least in my peer group. And I know, as a military member, we differentiate in a different kind of light from traditional candidates. But when I look at the candidates I'm competing against, specifically in my branch, I have some concerns. How do I differentiate myself from those candidates? Because they're going to have very similar backgrounds. I mean, you're talking about same year group, potentially the same undergraduate school, and even same deployments. So what did you see between the peers that you competed against in your specific branches? And how did you differentiate from them?
I would really strongly encourage you to think of it less as like I'm competing against my peers, and more as like these are people that I'm going to be, surrounded by and who are going to help me throughout my business career. I keep in touch with a lot of people I met during the application process, whether they're people that helped me with the application. Brandon, I think, actually had helped me as well, so appreciate that. But even just like other people that were applying to schools or ended up at contemporary schools, I keep in touch with them, and they're tremendous advocates and friends and very helpful. I think the most important thing that I really had a tough time internalizing and understanding was that the admissions committee is going to look at the whole person. And that's really true. It's not a test score. It's not what deployments you've done. It's not what units you've been a part of. I mean, all of those things are relevant. But like, what is your story and how do you tell it in those essays? They add so much color to who you are as a person. So my strongest encouragement recommendation is like, if you can swap out your name in your essay for someone else's name and it's still like a true thing, it's probably not personal enough and it doesn't really tell like your story. So, my first draft of my essays was like, I believe in service and like my country is really important to me and I want to get an MBA to like serve my country and community and be a business leader. And it's like, you could have swapped out Brendan with Brent or with Tim or with whoever else, and it would have still been true. Whereas like my last draft of my essay was like, hey, here's like something that's really important to me personally. It's been a really guiding force in my life and it drives a lot of the decisions that I've made in my life. And it will continue to do so in the future as I pursue this career. And to do that and make the impact that I want to have, I need this Wharton MBA for the following reasons. So it has to be really personal. And it's part of that being vulnerable thing is like, just like wear your heart on your sleeves in these essays and like your story will come through really clearly. And then make sure you have a lot of people like edit them and read them and whatnot. Reach out to the Veterans Club. They will help you with the application and with reading your essays to make sure you're telling the most compelling version of your story that's possible, because they've done it and they've been there and they've obviously been successful at it.
So yeah, so I mean, Brendan beat me to the punch on a lot of that stuff. I mean, while I was there, I was the head of admission for the Vets Club, and it was, so I saw a lot, a lot of material come through, and so I won't use some of the language that I would otherwise use if William weren't on the call here. But like, in the interest of candor, like, if the materials you send in are meant to replicate your ORD, not just the Vets Club, but the admissions committee is going to look at that, and their first impression is going to be, pause for a second, think about it. I'll say stiff, right? But like, don't come off as that guy, right? In writing, right? So like, I mean, what you want to do is have a reason why you're transitioning, how you're going to take all those awesome experiences and build on them in a way that's, better for the Wharton community. I mean, and is going to, I guess, how you're going to contribute to society going forward, right? Like, I guess maybe don't be backward looking, is the way I would think about it. But if your application is entirely predicated on you having a stellar service record up until this point, like, I mean, maybe you get in, right, because you were that awesome. But I think that the folks who were very, very successful in the process were able to tell a story about how what they've done so far was going to enable them to go do cool and different things later on. So that's kind of the advice I give.
Awesome, Brandon. Thanks for sharing. Thomas, you have the last question here before we leave everybody who's joined us tonight with some parting words from our panelists. Thomas, fire away.
Cool. Hey, everyone. Tom Rakes, Navy pilot by training, currently a DoD fellow in the Senate, which has been a pretty cool experience. Just a question that I don't think we've heard yet is, why Wharton? I'm sure you all had great options. Why'd you pick here?
I've answered this question about 100 times, and it's the same answer every time. And it's the genuine truth. It is 100% because of the people and the culture. Like, I don't, yes, it's got a great brand and all that. And there's other schools with great brands. What I observed through my time there and before, and I recognized this pretty quick at the very first pub and that very first military visit day, I recognized it immediately. It was like the authenticity of the people. And at Wharton, it's about the people. It's not about the brand. Does that make sense? And you really get to see that when you're in it every day for 2 years. I got a glimpse of it, and I kind of made that decision early on, like, oh, I just fit in here because as a military person, it's about people, right? You're a leader of people. And Wharton, it was just genuinely about the people and your experience. And everybody's just totally different, but it's about your experience as an individual person and how you connect with other people in your class. And that to me, that's it. That's the entire experience.
Brent said it all. So people.
I was going to say, that's a hard one to follow. It gives me goosebumps because I only get to vicariously live through our panelists as far as what they've been able to see and do in the MBA program. Because we went over, and I've already made all of you a little bit late because I know how serious time can really be for each of you. Panelists, any final words or advice or anything that helped you when you were either going through the process or something that really was a significant learning experience from your time at Wharton? Any final words that you want to share with our guests tonight as they are looking at either possibly applying or exploring their MBA? What final words of wisdom would you like to share with them, having gone through this experience?
I'll offer this up to everyone that's on the webinar right now. If you haven't reached out to the Veterans Club, please do so. Get linked up with a mentor or a buddy that will basically be your guide through the entire process. And that's what happened with me. I was fortunate to get linked up with 2 folks. Thomas Cavett was actually one of them, Brendan, who worked with me every step of the way to make sure that my essays had that personal touch, like Brendan mentioned, to make sure that my resume was on point. I mean, and that's ultimately why I chose to go to Wharton, similar to Brent. It was because of that experience. And so do it now, do it early. If you're thinking of applying round 1, like, they're there to help as a resource.
I'd say for the process, a genuine, cohesive picture of yourself, right? You don't know what admissions at any of these schools is looking at. It is literally a black box that about 3 people probably know most of the details. And at Wharton, some of it's quantified anyway, so only one guy really knows what's going on the code. But the don't worry about playing the games. Just provide a picture of yourself that is genuine and cohesive, and that's the best you can do. And then when you're there, it's busy, it goes fast. Enjoy it, and figure out what's important to you, genuinely and truly.
Yeah, so I'll dovetail on what Brent said there. And kind of my angle on it is take the time to reflect and figure out why you're going to business school and what you want to achieve with that, right? And that's going to do 2 things for you. One, that's going to come through in your application, and it's going to lend to a more cohesive and clearer application. That, I mean, I know from somebody who sat in like the vets admission seat, like that was a clear differentiator. I suspect William can speak to that with greater authority than I can. But also more importantly, I mean, continue that reflection as you show up on campus, right? There's going to be a lot of really cool opportunities, and there's going to be a lot of, I wouldn't call it direct peer pressure, but maybe indirect peer pressure to pursue certain career paths that are considered prestigious, or or what all your classmates are doing. And I think that the folks who I saw had not just the most success in terms of getting offers, but were also most fulfilled by the offers they got, were the folks who thought really hard about it, had specific goals, and actively went out and pursued them. That doesn't mean that those can't change over time, but that degree of reflection, both in the admissions process and the career pursuit process, once you're there, are going to serve you well.
I think a lot of smart words from my fellow panelists. So I'll keep this short. I guess my closing thoughts would be like, I know where you guys are. I know you're probably incredibly nervous about the transition. I was personally. You're going to land on your feet. So just take it a day at a time and do everything that you can to prepare yourself diligently with the VA, with post military employment, with these MBA applications. And part of doing so is reaching out for help. So second point is just keep networking. These kinds of calls are really helpful. One-on-one calls, even better. So reach out on LinkedIn to other vets who have done interesting things. They want to help you. They just need to be asked. So hit them up. They're probably very busy, so feel free to follow up. That'll be very, very helpful to you. The more of those conversations you can have, the better prepared you'll be for the transition. So keep having them, even though I know that they're tough to organize. Come to Wharton. If you guys get in, this is the most fun and interesting 2 years of my entire life. I'm closer to my Wharton classmates than people I deployed to combat with, or really any other phase of my life. So this was by far one of the best periods of times of my life. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And then my last piece of advice, I cannot recommend strongly enough for you guys to go to painttrue.com and buy some paintings for your loved one. It's going to make you look like an absolute hero. Your partner is going to love you. Maybe your mom. If you have a dog, get them painted. I'll throw the discount code back in that chat feature. So Billy will probably let you into Wharton if you guys go buy paintings, especially if you buy a lot of them.
Yeah, I also need to be hitting Brendan up for a painting as well. I have 2 dogs, and my one dog is unfortunately recently been diagnosed with cancer. So that's certainly something that, in keeping good fond memories of her, it's
100%.
coming. So Brendan, I know I owe you.
Let's go. Come on, Billy.
I owe you a couple things there for sure. We are out of time. I really do appreciate all of you for sticking around a little bit later than you possibly anticipated. Please join me in, certainly, if you know how to do the little reactions and the claps within the Zoom feature, in thanking all of our panelists for sticking around a little bit later and taking the time out of their busy evenings to talk with you a little bit more about this community. It's the best part about this Wharton community, as somebody who's on the outside looking in, vicariously living through Brandon, Brendan, Brent, and Brittany, is that there is so many infinite pathways here, and that who you are, what you do, what you can contribute within the vets community, anything else that you do, it really is a truly special 2-year journey that will set you up with so many different significant learning experiences that'll have profound impacts on who you are, what you do, and the type of leader, mentor, coach, partner that you want to be. So without any further ado, the last thing I will say as well is please continue to keep an eye out on our events page. I just dropped the link into the chat. We're going to be doing our military visit day later this fall. The date has not been shared publicly yet, but that's going to be coming. We're going to be doing a lot of other great events this fall as well. We're going to be featuring more students as well. So if you have other areas that you're interested in, get on our website, sign up for more events, and definitely don't be shy. If you have questions and you're looking to apply and hit submit, make sure you get your questions in early, not only to us, but also to this veteran community. It's easy to sit here and say all these wonderful things about Wharton, but at the very beginning of this event, I did share that the Vets Club is certainly one of my favorite clubs. And that is because I don't know of any other club that has so much dedicated members, both current as well as alums, that care about helping vets put their best foot forward in this application process, in this MBA journey, and ultimately being able to go out and make that pivot and change into civilian life. You're going to be great. You are great. Thank you for all that you do. But without further ado, continue to be safe, be well. Thank you again for your time. We wish you all the best. And thank you for coming tonight to learn a little bit more about the Wharton MBA. Take care, everybody.